agenda, and I know that there are some people I'm expecting to be here, but anyway, let's just get started because we have a lot to get through. So the first thing I want you guys to know is that, come on in, do we need more chairs? Looks like, right here. But PAARI has been together for about the last 8 months, and in that amount of time, it's really been amazing for me to see just how much we've been able to accomplish. And the first thing that we were able to accomplish is get drug and alcohol counselors into our schools. And I see the difference already in my classroom. You know, just having somebody that kids can go to talk to about family issues that are within the drug kind of realm is incredibly helpful. Because a lot of kids are impacted, and not necessarily using, but they're impacted by the drug culture in our town. And so that's unfortunate, but we are not alone because this is happening nationwide. So, but another thing that we've been working on is the PAARI initiative, and we're going to hear about that a little bit later. And that's really, really exciting stuff. We've been in touch with some of our representatives here in our state, and are making large changes with regards to that. And I know that one of the people from Arlington is flying in next week, right, to give us some information about that. So I'm excited to hear about that. Yeah. So we've been working on a lot of really cool things. So one of the things that we have talked about that has been a really, really popular topic is how we can work a little bit more with our youth here in town in order to improve, their resiliency against drugs. And a few months back, Leslie and myself and Gwen, we traveled to Port Townsend to check out the boiler room. And the boiler room is a gathering place for a variety of ages, and they do have activities there. They have, community members that come in and teach how to change a tire or how to cook a meal or other types of things. But they also have a lot of outreach opportunities. So there's counseling networked. They have health things networked into there. So there's a really good network of people. One of the things that was really interesting to me as we were talking to the director of the boiler room was how they had to kind of struggle through their reputation. And so, they started out as, the town not really understanding what the boiler room was about. And so they really had to do a lot of outreach and marketing in order for people to understand what that was, what their purpose was. And so the two main things that she communicated to us very clearly is if we want something like this to work, we're going to have buy-in from our community, and we're going to need funding. And so we started talking about it, and this is the reason that we haven't really talked about it in a large group much yet, is because how can we stair-step all of the things we're trying to do in order to eventually get to a facility for youth? And this is something that I want to open up to for you as a conversation. Is it a possibility for us to plan youth activities maybe once a week, twice a month, and get businesses on board and get students to actually start planning these events, and then helping them facilitate. So anyway, I just wanted to open it up to you because to get a facility is going to be a long process, and it's going to take a lot of funding. But what can we do now in order to offer kids more opportunity to do fun things?
Are you opening it up to?
I am done talking for the time being. Just go ahead.
Are you talking Boys and Girls Club?
I am not talking the Boys and Girls Club, although that is definitely something that we can talk about at some point. The Boys and Girls Club was one of our major things we wanted to focus on. And then what we realized is that the Boys and Girls Club is over capacity. So right now here in Port Angeles, the Boys and Girls Club can only handle, I think, 120 to 130 kids. There are more kids that need those services than what they can handle. They need a new building. And so
But if they were to get that rebuilt,
they're getting that, they're supposed to be getting that within the next 3 to 4, 3 to 5 years.
would that provide the solution to your space problem?
It could, I don't know. It could, it just depends on what, yeah, I mean, it could probably solve part of that, but what do we do from now until then?
Tonight's thing is really about, and we especially want to hear from the kids. It's about what are some near-term things that you think we could be doing to give kids who need a place to hang out, to do whatever, whatever. But it's what do you want to see? I mean, if we go out and invent it, then it'll be just another one of those things from the parents and the adults. What do you need?
I think one of the things that's really important for kids, because I was one myself once, and I think feeling like they're maybe living on the edge just a little bit. So some of those things that maybe they're not allowed to do at school, they're not allowed to play dodgeball at school. They're not allowed to have a Nerf gun fight. They're not allowed to, there's a lot of things that they're not allowed to do at school. Things like that, I think would be fun for them. To start, just to start with.
Can the kids chime in and tell us what you need? Since it
What would
was
you guys like to do? What would be fun? What would be fun for you? Was that
Midnight swimming.
midnight swimming? Okay, somebody ready?
I'm ready down too.
Midnight swimming, midnight basketball, we've also heard that.
Midnight anything really.
What is it about midnight?
Right, what is it about midnight?
It's in the
Your
middle of the
residents.
night.
It's like, right,
It's like living on the edge thing.
Like, yeah, living on the edge thing.
It's feeling like that they're doing something naughty, something they're not supposed to do.
Is that like a Friday night activity, a Saturday night activity?
Yeah, something like that.
you guys have to help us hold people out. I know, you know that if Miss Gooding plans it, it's not gonna be very fun. Just kidding. Annabelle.
What if we had a lock-in at the, like, one lock-in at the middle school and one lock-in at the high school?
Yes, please.
That'd be fun. You guys can spend more time at school.
In a lock-in, yeah.
What is a lock-in?
A lock-in, it's where you stay the night at school. Basically, they usually do it on Fridays where you have a normal day at school, and then they basically, around I think 8 or 9, they lock the doors and nobody comes in or out. And then they just stay the night there, and then they go home the next morning.
There's movies and there's
It's like a giant sleepover, but you get to sleep on the floors and the library couches and everywhere.
Is it co-ed sleeping?
That was great. So generally when I've been to lock-ins, usually they separate the girls and the boys and they have girls in there. Yeah, so that would be necessary.
When it comes to the time of sleeping, it would probably be like one gender down in the 7th grade hallway and then one gender in the 8th grade hallway or something like that.
Have they had those before?
I heard about my mom and my uncles having one once when they were younger, and I just thought it would always be cool if I could get the chance to have it. So.
Not the last 8 years, anyway.
Do teachers usually chaperone them?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how that would work, but we're super strict on stuff like that. We might not be fun.
Yeah, that's the problem. You guys are so strict, like, you can't do anything.
Mr. Johnson is like totally.
Mr. Johnson's like amazing, but that's a different story. No offense.
No, it's no
You are still a good teacher.
I
Just saying.
accept
Yeah,
that.
some of the teachers that can stay and want to, they should probably supervise.
There would need to be supervision for
Well,
sure.
yeah, obviously.
And it doesn't,
I'm saying they have to need and want to. I mean, they
Yeah.
have to want to.
and does it need to be at the schools to be fun? Like, if there is a liability issue or whatever, because I don't know any of this and I can't promise anything, but would there be another place that would be just as fun?
Where do you recommend?
We used to do all-night skates at
The
skating.
library.
We did that. It was like.
It was sort of the same concept, like we had a sleepover and there was a
adult supervision, but you can skate the whole night too. That was awesome. Yeah, I can see the issue.
This is a good question to put on your Facebook page. Get some
And
more.
I did put a version of this question on there, and now I'm kind of forgetting what people said. But they did say midnight basketball, they did say lock-in, they did say swimming. Yeah, what else?
They said something about open mic nights too. Open mic and karaoke.
I really like the bonfire thing that we do every year. I think that's really cool. Bonfire. Yes.
Okay.
Do something like that.
The only problem with the bonfire is that every single year that we do it, it's always wet. We never do it during even close to a dry time.
It's November, right?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I
It's
understand, but
because
it's
it rains like
super cold and it's like a
10
super tiny
months of the
bonfire.
year.
And it's like there's mud everywhere. I fell like 4 times. Like, that shouldn't be happening.
We don't want you to fall.
No, I fall a lot, but like,
Good to know.
Well, Angie, you asked for their input, and
No, and I
it seems to me like there's a little support for that idea,
What, for the bonfire?
and the lock-in.
I think it would be, I think it's a great idea.
I never got to do anything fun in middle school. I rolled down a hill on the first day of 7th grade and I got detention. So,
What?
the hills, the basketball courts outside, I rolled down one of the hills and they gave me detention.
that's
I
weird.
was, it's a hill.
Smiley because she's Miss Frowny.
It was one of the other ladies, but when I was in middle school, it was fun, but it was the teacher's definition of fun.
So what would you find fun? What would you want to do on a Friday or Saturday night when you're at home?
I'm
What
in
would
high
you?
school now, so it's like teachers are way looser at school and they stay in their classrooms, kind of like cave dwellers, but
What about like, I don't know,
Paintballs.
paintball, yeah, or like
Laser tag.
laser
tag.
tag,
flashlight.
Or we could put an arcade back in town.
arcade.
That'd be cool. I miss the arcade.
Arcade
I
was
only
so
went there
fun.
once.
I used to go there when I was like 6 years
That
old.
was
I'd like walk
the
down a hill and
only
just
place where we would meet up with Dad. It was so much fun.
It was
When they closed
yes.
it down, it was like, wow, we have to go back to batting cages, staff visits.
Never even seen an arcade.
Sometimes you young people like to play the games on the internet where you are competing with a lot of other people, right?
Yeah.
How about a game that becomes a Port Angeles competition and you get to meet the players and you all take your sides and you start it at a function and then it takes off after that?
That'd be cool. Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's a place for the nerdy kids to play magic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
like trying to
and
grow.
this is something that has come up is that we want to make sure that kids are able to plan a lot of this stuff, just as long as it's legal and it's safe and all of those things. And that adults are really going to play the role of helping facilitate and make it happen. And so, because we want this to be something that kids want to do. And another thing is we want to make sure that all of these activities are not geared toward one group of kids. You know, that there are either a variety of activities that kids are going to want to do, and if they don't want to do it this week, maybe they'll enjoy something the following week or whatever. And that it's somehow prevents, you know, the cliques that a lot of times happen in this age group. So, yeah, Annabelle.
What if, like, I don't know, a Saturday morning, whatever, we got everyone from the high school and middle school somehow and like use one of the gyms or auditorium places, and we had this giant sheet of paper and we all got to draw something on it. Or use like paint on our hands and then leave your handprint on it.
Weren't you the one that wrote an argumentative essay in my class about having a graffiti wall in town?
Yeah, that would be so cool. Like the way France has that giant fence that everybody goes and puts a lock on it.
Yes!
Oh, yeah.
Dude, yeah.
I would do that.
And then they throw the keys into the water.
So there's just one place for either these locks or graffiti wall where it's, you know, contained and.
The place where kids like to draw. I mean, I brought a sketchbook with me tonight. I love that.
So if you had an artist who came in as a guest to teach or to show,
There's a substitute here. The mural downtown, she painted some of the faces hidden in the forest.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then she's a sub in the district?
Yeah.
Neat. Oh, that's a.
you could teach those things.
Yeah.
You mentioned the click problem, Angie.
A what problem?
Click.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned competition, and I see those maybe as countermeasures for one another. Something like this lock-in where people were encouraged to meet everybody else, do something with everybody else,
Yeah,
would seem really good to me.
yeah, and there was like different activities and different movies in every room, and that would be pretty cool. Like in some of the rooms where the teachers were supervising, and then we'd have like 2 or 3 walking the halls to keep everybody, you know, no touchy-feely. And then there would be different activities for different kids, and you could walk around and do whatever. It'd be fun.
Do the schools have a lot of dances?
Yeah, I think there's.
Okay, there's a lot of chuckling. What's that about?
They're not even like,
They're not even fun, really. I mean, hardly anybody goes to them. I think the last one, there was only like 50 kids, and half of the people just stood around the edges talking to their friends.
yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's,
And that's a decade old thing.
The next one is this month, and it's on the 19th, and like, me and a bunch of other people are planning to go, but it's because nobody knows when it is that they don't go. Because
It needs to be advertised better.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be advertised better, because they're fun.
What do you guys think of the different age groups? You know, do you think that middle school and high school belong together in the same
Yes,
kind
you
of?
know how many friends in high school that I have? I am friends with almost every high schooler.
I think it helped really if we did activities with the high schoolers, because then we wouldn't be as terrified when we had to transfer from middle school to high school. And if we did some stuff with the 6th or 5th graders, they wouldn't be as scared to going into middle school.
And they wouldn't be all, oh my gosh, they're like way up there, and I'm like super inferior to them. I, as a high schooler, definitely agree that we should blend in more with the other schools. I'm a 9th grader, she's a 9th grader, she's my best friend. I never get to see her anymore, so.
I saw some hands up.
I forget what I was going to say. We'll come back.
Okay.
How about old-fashioned coffee houses, like for youth? So, you know, where you get together and talk about books, or talk about what's on television, or, you know, whatever's kind of popular there. It could be a once-a-month thing, and could that be kind of
I
fun?
remember what I was going to say.
Okay, and I know that there is a business in town that is willing to stay open later just for kids for this type of event, and so that's, yeah.
Well, talking about that lock-in idea reminded me of when I was in high school, which was a very long time ago, and we had our high school, every high school graduation class would have a lock-in at the school, at the high school, and everybody stayed there all night long. And there was a theme, you know, and then during the year you would develop the theme, like, you know, you could do a music theme, or this theme, or you know, go to Hawaii theme. So there was groups, and so they had something to work on, and it was really fun, and everybody had to stay there all night long. So it's sort of just, I think if there was a musical idea, or maybe they all could write a song together that night, and then they learn it, and then they perform it for each other, or something, you know, where you have some group activity where you have to develop some idea.
Staying with the line of music, you've heard about the stories where you get together, you write a play one night, you pick the actors, and you perform it at the end of the night. Those are a blast. So, you know, there's things that all fit into that.
And what about like frisbee golf? You know, for some people, I'm looking at facial expressions. Some people would really like it, I think.
I think a few kids would probably go. For me, I don't prefer frisbee golf because
No offense, I just
I am
don't
horrible
consider it a
at frisbee.
sport. Like, I consider golf a sport, but frisbee golf, I don't consider it a sport. I consider it a game that's meant to be played with a dog instead of holes.
Oh, savage. Okay, got it. Okay. So here's what I propose. I think that what we should do, in just saving time, is I think that we should start a subcommittee to look at who can be involved, how to plan these kind of events and activities, and how to make it work, how to pull in businesses, and really make it kid-focused. So how many people would be interested in being on something like that? All right, why don't we
Pass the
pass
sheet.
around? I'm very unprepared, I don't have a piece of paper. Okay, yes, so please put your name and phone number and email address on that, that would be great. Because I really do think that this could be, I think it's very important as we look at our drug problem in town and looking at how much idle time teenagers have.
You said name and email?
What do you call this?
Why don't we call it the Kid Activity Committee?
Before you leave this, can I ask one question? Do you have access to peer counselors?
See what?
Peer counselors.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. What's a
The peer counselors are kids your own age who've had a little bit of training from some adults who know what they're doing, as people you can go to talk to when your world is exploding.
natural helpers?
So we have these things called natural helpers, but
Okay.
I only know who one of them is, and that's because she's been my friend since 5th grade. So it's hard to understand who I can go to and talk to.
I think that we have unannounced people that do that. I mean, like, I know for a fact that tons of people used to come to me, but then I did other things and, you know, cliques, people separated, but I used to talk to people.
Okay.
And I just want to say one thing. I'd love to be on this committee, but I'm too busy as it is. I'll do what I can, but let me caution some of us old folks. I saw a whole bunch of enthusiasm and a whole lot of interest from all you kids and a whole lot of originality. And then some of us old folks got in and tried to suggest what we thought they should do. And so whoever is on this committee, please let the young kids say what they want and don't try to channel them in any direction until after they've said their thing, and then maybe we could go over it and see what, you know, what's okay and what isn't. I really appreciate your enthusiasm.
I know, it's very important to have this student, you know, kid-led, I agree.
I think it's going to also be important to do, like she was just saying, maybe an older, you know, juniors and seniors versus, like I say, a 6th grader. That's very vastly different as far as interests and legalities in a lot of ways, because you're going to have 17 and 18-year-olds mingling with 10-year-olds, and it's, so that's a tough thing to kind of intertwine. So maybe more like a middle school thing.
If you have the age groups, I think some of your older kids could maybe, you know, use it as an opportunity for volunteer
Yeah,
or
or
for
community
community service, their work experience, you could add it to, you know.
So it could be something
that-
like earned by the older kids, you know what I mean? Like good behavior, you know, getting good marks in school, or, you know, whatever the case may be, like a chosen few well-molded individuals could interact with the younger ones to bridge that gap, like the kids were talking about earlier, bringing, you know, middle school kids to hang out with older kids, but you might have to pick the right children for that kind of activity. There was a program that I was a part of when I was in high school in Seattle. And it was called Steps Up or Steps Ahead or something like that. And it was a mentor program where adults volunteered their time for at-risk youth. Kids that were having a hard time in school, not doing so well, so on and so forth. And they would select the kids that needed some extra attention, some interaction, so on and so forth. They wanted to be a part of this group, and they would go on like retreats. Like they would go camping for like 4 days, and they were from all walks. You'd have like the cool kids and the nerdy kids and the rocker kids and the emo kids, but they forced team building skills and interactions. And I was a part of it for 4 years, and it it literally broke down all of the cliques because the cool kids, even after, when they went to school and stuff, they would still do their cool kid thing, and the nerdy kids would do their nerdy kid thing. But the interactions in the hallway were different. They would still say, hey, what's up? Hey, what are you doing after school? And it allowed that group interaction that kind of segregates children a lot. And then they also, I really did, what you're doing here reminded me of that, because a lot of the activities were thought about by us kids, but we had like 2 a month. We had like a movie night, or we would go out to eat at a restaurant, a huge group, and just mob the whole restaurant. It'd just be full of kids and adults volunteering their time. I think this could be something really cool.
I think the college they used to have a program that did have some personal building skills, like it was like a personal confidence builder course type thing. They still have that program. So we've incorporated into a team building, skill building.
Isn't there programs like Big Brother, Big Sister type programs all over the country where, like he was saying?
It's kind of like
that'd be kind of a fun thing to do, because the actual boiler room or a place to go have like adults or older high school kids kind of take all these younger ones under their wing to do like camping trips. And, I would. I would take my own children and I would go out there and camp for a few days like I do anyways, and bring them all of them with tents and, stuff like that.
And then someone, like her age.
Yeah.
Did you sign up for, you put your info down?
My wife did.
Okay, very good. Awesome. Yes?
I was thinking about how our library kind of doesn't have a lot of, it has a lot of teen books, but it doesn't have a lot of places where teens can go to just hang out and talk and whatever. When I lived in Kentucky, there was a huge library, and it had a downstairs and a normal floor and then an upstairs. And they had a little cafe in it. And you could just go and you can sit there and you can talk and be on your computer with your friends and your high school friends and whatever. And it was really cool. And then at Roosevelt, when I was in school, on field day, they had this giant dance thing. And they played really loud music, and they had bubbles and lights and everything. It was awesome. So we can do that.
The coffee shop thing has come up a little bit. It's just a really great place to just hang out and chill out, and so that's definitely Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I also noticed that a lot of stores try to reject the publicity from teens, because they don't like all of the attention from that group of people, because they find we get a lot of bad rap, in case you haven't noticed, because the majority of us, usually we'll have cliques, like you said, and so where one of us goes, usually a group will follow, and people don't want that.
And I think that's a conversation that I think we need to have just as a town too, because one of the things that's come up in our meetings a few times is, why don't we make eye contact with one another more often? A lot of people avoid eye contact with teenagers, and that's just one huge way to just, you don't actually even have to say hi, you just make eye contact, move on, and you acknowledge the person, and I think that might be a starting place, but I agree that there's kind of I don't know if people are fearful of you guys, but you're not scared, probably.
It's probably because they were like us once, and they might have been like, man, I was awful, and now they're like, okay, yeah, but I think that between the time that they were teenagers and the time that now where we are teenagers, there's been an exponential difference, and it's difficult to see, but once you really take a look at us and learn more about us and interact and associate, the difference is extravagant and showing itself.
I think you guys are doing really, really well in a situation that is really, really hard. You guys you're fighters and you're survivors, so you're doing a good job. Thanks, man. You're welcome, ma'am.
Angie?
Yeah.
We have some facilities in town that are used during the day, for instance, the Vern Burton Center, but then shuts down at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Maybe there's some possibilities for some joint use of it at night after hours on certain days. What about facilities with some of the churches who have gymnasiums, big, facilities like that? If we also think out of the box, maybe we can use these things on a
consistent basis, yeah. And even I know when I was growing up here, the YMCA was open like just maybe once a month, twice a month, I don't know, and it was open late on a Saturday, and there was music, and then there was basketball, and there were, a lot of different things happening inside the YMCA, so.
Another way, because what I've been noticing is, kids want. A way I feel that kids might be able to get these things from the community, because they're there, they're just not available, is if there was an equal trade, maybe. Like, kids could volunteer at certain businesses, and then the businesses might be more inclined to give things, to do extra things, to stay open later, to give discounts on stuff to certain age groups, to you know what I mean? They might be, if the kids gave into the community might give into the kids at the
find
same
the win-win. Find the win-win.
A win-win.
Well, right on that same vein, talking about giving to the community, is that I'm on the Port Angeles Community Garden Board, and there's a 5th Street Community Garden that's already been going, and it's in full bloom. And now, last year we started an 11th Street Community Garden. And we can't get people, families around the neighborhood. It's between A and B near the Skill Center, and that would be a perfect place for stuff to happen in the community and people could give back. As far as, but we're not very good at marketing ourselves, I guess. We need more gardeners, and we need more board members.
But I think that, giving kids purpose and allowing them to explore what their interests are while they are being safe, and they also take leadership, because I think that this is about connecting with kids and connecting our kids to our community, and making sure that they have a voice in what goes on and a voice in what they do to volunteer, because I know the kids I teach, all of them have inclinations to volunteer, and it might just be about transportation, or it might just be about time, or about resources, or maybe they don't have the right equipment, or whatever it is, but they do have, a lot of them have very generous hearts, and so I bet you that would probably be something that maybe almost would naturally happen too. So, yes.
I know that it is illegal to hire anyone under the age of 16, but if they were to support you in your business and helping it move along, if we were to do that for get together 2 hours every month, and do that at a certain place, and then get 2 hours there to hang out and just be us, do you think that you could find a place that would allow that to happen?
I've already heard of places that are willing to do that. And actually, this is a great segue, because Leslie has been doing a lot of stuff already in town, and she's here to tell us about, is it Wellapalooza? Wellapalooza, and what's going on at the high school soon. And that she's already made connections with businesses that probably would already, be willing to do that. So this would be a good time to...
Okay, sorry I was late. I thought it was 6:30. Don't they usually start at 6:30?
A long time ago we started at 6:30.
Yeah. It's a good thing. I mean, I looked at to make sure it was still here. And I was like, oh, so anyway, sorry everybody. Okay, we have actually, I know you guys are probably short on time, but we have some really exciting things going. Sorry for you can't see me. There are actually 3 things happening right now as far as trying to get activities going for kids. There's a lot of interest in this. I've been really happy with the kind of response I've been getting from people, and I'm so excited to see some young people here, so good job. And hearing the conversation that's happening tonight is exactly what needs to happen. We need to have more of that, about what you guys want rather than what we think you want or should have. So there's 3 things going on right now as far as this goes. The first thing is at the high school on April 29th is an event called Wellapalooza. And Pam Helpenstell, the leadership teacher at the high school, was putting this together. They've done it before. The last time they did it was in 2000, so it was a long time ago. But how it works is for the first half of the day, the kids don't go to regular classes, and they have about 25 to 30 sessions of things that are mostly healthy activities that you can do, because there's, one of the companies, he hears it constantly, there's nothing to do in this town, there's nothing to do in this town. Well, there's really actually a lot to do in this town. You just maybe don't know about it or haven't learned about it. So it's going to be primarily focused at healthy activities. I mean, we've got somebody's talking about competitive mountain biking. I think somebody's going to do a juggling demonstration. The police department's going to be there to do a couple of things for us. When they had it before, they had somebody that demonstrated knitting. Somebody from the community players is going to come and talk about performing arts and how you can get involved in that. And then we're also going to have some mental health and social health type sessions too. Suicide prevention, depression, hopefully some anti-drug speakers as well. And there'll be 3 25-minute sessions that repeat, so that the kids will have a chance to go to the sessions that they want. And so one thing that we're looking for this is people who think that they might have something to say to these kids, or teach them, or that you want them to know about. The Rowing Association is going to be there. So I would love to, if anybody here, or if you know anybody that has a skill, an activity, or something that they would like to see the kids get excited about, that might be appropriate for this event, please let me know, or let Angie know, or through Pete, you can contact me through PAARI. But and that's happening April 29th, so it's coming up quick. It's going to be a really good event. It was really well received last time they did it. I have an old-fashioned. This is the brochure from the last time they did it. You can see that it was very 2000, so things have gotten a little, but there's line dancing, there's even a stock market, investing in stocks, dog obedience, so grief, loss, and separation. So it's going to be a little bit of everything.
Can you pass that around, Leslie?
Huh?
Could you pass that around?
Sure. Now this is last year, so it won't be exactly like this, but it just gives you the general idea. And we're open to suggestions as far as sessions go. The second thing kind of dovetails with the third thing, and that is the idea for a boiler room type event, place where kids can go. I've been talking to people that run teen centers that are successful around the country and that have longevity, and shockingly enough, not really, the two factors that seem to be really important for any of them that are sustainable is, first of all, it has to be teen-led. The teens have to be in charge. They have to be the ones that create the ideas, and more often than not, they actually work there too. That's a huge part of it. And the second thing is there has to be coffee. So that's essential. Yes. That's essential, yeah.
So the other thing that I mentioned is that there has to be buy-in from the community.
Yeah, there
has to be
community
support from the community.
Right. Absolutely. And when Angie and I went to visit the boiler room, she might have mentioned this already, they had a little bit of trouble for a while with their reputation, and the community was not supportive. And they had to work really, really hard to get that back. And now, now they have great community support, and they wouldn't be able to make it if they didn't. And they're a really good example of what to do. But and so the third thing is, and this is sort of like a little trial run, I guess you could call it, or build up toward the whole boiler room activity, is we actually are going to do something on April 16th at Bada Bean. She is going to stay open till, I think, midnight, 11 midnight. And it's going to be a teen night. We're going to plan some kind of activity. I don't know if it's going to be open mic night, a couple of kids from the school who think they're comedians, or we haven't quite gotten that far. Cards Against Humanity, activity, I don't know, something like that. It's going to be up to you guys to choose. But we're going to have some, actual activities, but it's going to be very casual, very laid back. It's going to be at, a coffee shop, and they're going to stay open late and just see how it goes. It's kind of a trial run. There are other places that have offered to do this as well, or said they might be interested in this. Places like, somebody over here was saying that other places have spaces that aren't being used, and we might be able to tap into some of that to have sort of a rotating late night, teen get-together thing, and maybe bi-monthly, maybe monthly. And that could possibly even work into a fundraiser for the eventual boiler room project, because obviously that's going to take a lot of money. But this will be a great way to kind of get our toes wet as far as figuring out what the kids want. making the connections we need, and like I said, maybe even raising a little bit of money to get started for it. And then ultimately, the idea will be to have a permanent teen center that is teen-led, teen-run, where teens work, and with huge community buy-in, which we need. So, having said that, our first subcommittee meeting will be next Thursday at 6:30. The Discalas have very kindly allowed us to use the Mendon space downtown for our meeting, which is right downtown in the block that the Elks is in. And what is it between?
It's right next to Michael's Fine Dining,
Okay,
but on the
okay.
street level.
Yeah, okay. It's really easy to find. Actually, what is the address?
123 East First Street.
Okay, 123
East First.
Yes. At 6:30.
6:30 Thursday.
And I really want, if any of you kids would like to come, there's going to be West Side Pizza, so please come. Next Thursday at 6:30. And anybody else you know that might be interested in this, please ask them to come. So we're off and running. And be thinking about, especially you guys, be thinking about the Bada Bean thing. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever been in there, but it's a coffee shop. It's very comfortable. It's really cool inside. She used her grandfather's horse barn to do most of the decorating, so it's all reclaimed stuff. And she's very excited about being a part of this too. She's got 2 little kids that are eventually going to be teenagers in this town, and so she's really into this. So be thinking about what could happen that night if you would like to give us some ideas. So does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I've been meaning to ask, and it's sort of slipped my mind. Why, I know that a lot of larger towns have this, and I was wondering why we don't. You know how they have places like NA and AA, Neurotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous? Well, some large towns have places for their kids to go because their kids suffer from it as well, and I was wondering why we don't have one.
That is a really good question that has come up, actually, a lot. And I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. So it is a really good question that needs to be probably brought to the forefront, actually. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes, Drake and Franny.
We didn't hear that.
Oh, she wanted to know why there isn't an AA or an NA for teenagers.
There's Teen Anonymous, is there not one here? We don't have
think so.
Does anybody know?
I don't think so.
What you want to look for, first of all, what you want to look for is Al-Anon, which is for families. But within that, there's a group called Alateen. It's just for kids. And you can find them online and begin there. And if one is to start locally, you have to understand that the 12-step programs, they don't advertise. So it's going to come out of some folks going to Al-Anon, participating in Al-Anon, and then starting a group up, and then letting it take off with the kids. Because these programs they're not businesses, it's all just a group of people. If you want an Alateen, what I'm telling you is that eventually you're going to get to the point where you have to create it. A bunch of you have to get together, and they will make sure that there's some people there who have been going to these kinds of programs for a while and can help you be on the right track.
And that's also another thing to bring up with Leanne too. Yeah, I think it's great. Leanne and then AJ up at the high school, you know, and just, hey, how can you help us figure out a way to get that? Because it is a great resource for kids. It really is. Yes.
One of the problems at our school is that Leanne has a lot of people come in to talk to her about it because, have you seen our school? You know how many kids in our school suffer from drug abuse, not only from themselves, but from their families and stuff like that? And Miss Lancaster told her she can't have that many people anymore.
Well, that's an issue that we'll probably deal with another time. But yeah, Leanne's very popular and she's really good at her job. And so she has a lot of kids that want to she just has a lot of kids that want to hang around her. Kind of like me. Just kidding. Okay, drink.
This is kind of off topic. I just want to make a comment about it, but I'm thinking about this. I think we should lower our age limit for jobs to 14-year-olds because it's not fair for you to be 16 and get a job. some people that are 14 need jobs too.
You know, my daughter just got a job and she's 15, so I know there are some circumstances where you can work when you're, I don't know what the rules are or what the.
And Leslie, wasn't there, at the boiler room, did they have to be 16, or was there I thought there was a clause where they were able to, but I don't remember.
It's dependent on your business license, if
Is
you're
it?
insured to have underage.
Oh,
Maybe that's what it was.
You mean as far as who could work there?
Yeah.
It was something about the hours they could work.
Right,
Or there was
there were
certain
4 to 6.
restrictions, yeah, and not past a certain time, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Something like that.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about the details about things, but you guys are bringing up a lot of ideas. And the great thing about getting more teen activities and possibly a boiler type room is that these conversations can happen more often. You know, and you'll have a group of adults that are willing to kind of help you figure out, you know, how things can go. So, thank you, Leslie.
Make a suggestion here?
Yeah.
This is quite a front here that we have with these kids. And my suggestion is that you spread the word and get more in here, because I think that's going to be a big issue for you in the future. You can build that rapport with as many kids as you can that have the same participation desire as you do. And you're absolutely bringing the front line to this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And if you can get more kids in here, we'll keep our mouths shut. Adults, because we don't need to. You can just bring up the ideas and we'll see if we can do something.
Yeah, I guess we could bring it up with leadership in both schools. I would help publicly announce, but I'm not socially accepted, so.
You might be.
And I would, but I'm afraid of large amounts of people.
I have so many people.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job.
You guys are doing awesome.
Well, you're not all surrounded, it's not like in a class.
Yeah, I guess that's.
So I have probably, I would say I probably have about 30 of you guys that I could probably, you know, or you guys could attract, and we can, you know.
Could attract.
I get so many
people. Things are like
I
back,
know.
like way when people were racial against other colored skins. It's like that now. It's like, oh, you're that low class, I'm gonna get infected.
It's like, oh, you like video games. It's an infection.
There's so many different click problems in schools nowadays. It's really disturbing.
Angie, can I ask, are you from Stevens, or what grade are you guys?
I'm a high schooler.
I've
been through Stevens.
Okay, are you a freshman now, or?
I'm a freshman.
Okay, and are you a?
I'm in 8th grade now.
Okay, so you're gonna be very soon in high school,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and what about you guys? Are you guys?
8th grade.
So you're Stevens. Okay, so you guys are, I mean, by the time we actually get something like this up and running, you'll be the ones who we're trying to serve. So get out, be involved. And this saying that you're not socially accepted is don't say that. Don't say that, because this is exactly the kind of thing that's going to try to change that. You know, places where you guys can not be in the school culture and you can be yourselves and meet other people that are like you. So,
like where we go on a
be
camping trip
involved.
or something.
Volunteering is one of the greatest ways in the world to get to know people. So,
And I might present this to you. What you're starting tonight is speaking in front of 35, 40 people here. It's giving you the courage to do that. The next time you speak to somebody, it might be 45 or 50. And that makes a big difference in how you present yourself. You know, you're afraid now, but in the future, just like when I first rappelled off of a tower, the first time I was just really, really, really scared. And I was, in my 40s. And then I did it again, it was easier. And then after that, it was just a piece of cake. So keep doing this.
I just think of my brother Brian, because he's going to be in middle school next year, and I hope that, with this little start off, I can get things set up for him and make it happen and make it easy, because I have 5 younger siblings in Port Angeles, so I would just like to, help them out a little bit.
And that's exactly why we're having this conversation.
It's so intimidating passing up from grades, like, oh, I'm in elementary school, oh my gosh, middle school's next, oh my gosh, high school's next. It's super intimidating because you feel totally inferior, and the way people segregate things, it's like more of if we did this and students opened up with other students, they would be less afraid. That's why kids are doing drugs and not telling people, because they're afraid and intimidated that they're going to get in trouble or something. They probably are, but it makes sense, because I mean, if you isolate all these people, they're going to be antisocial, they're going to be depressed, they're going to be bipolar. It's better to mingle just a little bit. Maybe age differences, like seniors and 6th graders, maybe that shouldn't go together, but 6th graders and 7th graders, 8th graders and 9th graders, and just a little closer. It would make things easier.
And I do agree that, I mean, because I teach middle school, I see that the need for activities is at that age group, because that's the age where we can actually intervene, you know, and that's where we can say, whoa, you know, and so I think that age group is a really important one to serve. And so blending and mixing and doing different things, everything is out on the table right now. I mean, anything is a possibility. And so keep coming to meetings and keep voicing things, because that's what we need. Because again, if adults plan it, it's not gonna fly, because you guys aren't gonna want to do anything.
Well, obviously, you guys don't have the minds of teenagers anymore, and the stuff that you did, it's changed now. We're in the world of text.
Yes, things have changed a lot.
So use your social media stuff to spread the word. You can use the stuff off of this video, which will be on PAARI, and share it with your friends. Let them look at how you're presenting yourselves. This will be really cool.
And you guys are welcome to join PAARI. We're very respectful toward all groups of people, and but this is a good time to switch, and I'm glad that you guys are here to hear the rest of the conversations too, because there's some really exciting things happening in town. So PAARI is also looking at the employment and the job issue in town, and Doc is sitting right next to you guys, and he is really leading the efforts to take a look at employment and jobs, and because we know, employment and jobs are very much tied into drug use. So, and I will not take one. Thank you.
Hi. Yes, PAARI started our employment. They came out of our focus on drug and alcohol rehabilitation, and the need for people who have chosen to stop doing drugs to get a job and be active and have a purpose and have value that when they look in the mirror in the morning and have hope. But very quickly we expanded beyond that, because we realized that this is really a big town issue. We found a number of different things. One is that on any given day, somewhere between 20 and 40 jobs are listed in WorkSource and other places that are what we call family wage jobs, sort of 40K and up, and they're not getting filled. They're not getting filled because people do not have the training to take the jobs. We then also, in the next step, we said, so let's get our people trained. But then we found out sometimes the training doesn't exist. And sometimes the training costs money and people can't afford it. Moreover, they can't stop working the 2 or 3 low-wage jobs that they are working in order to take the time to do the training. They can't move away to go to the places where the training is at if it's not here, because they have a family here that they have to support. So we are looking for solutions to these issues. And one of the solutions that was suggested and we're considering is doing a kind of a summit. You'll see that as number 3. Should we host a summit with businesses and agencies and training providers? Basically the topic is, how do we develop fast, flexible, paid for training for this town? So that if an organization like a new carbon fiber manufacturer wants to move into town and they need people who have a certain kind of skills, that they can get that done very quickly. They can say, I need this, and I use this as an example because this has happened. The Carbon Center is working with Peninsula College, they're training people, and so the little bit of recycling that we're doing here, the materials that are then able to be used in manufacturing, they can actually develop the people to work on those things, and that program is underway now. We need to mimic that in other career areas, marine industries and the like, and we need to be filling our jobs. Filling our jobs isn't just about getting people jobs, it's also about getting more jobs for the community, because when employers see that you have a vital training base and you have people getting employed, then they say, well, that's a good town to move to. And we're actively, the port, for example, is actively trying to bring in new businesses into our port, which is one of the best deep water ports around, but it's not filled. And one of the reasons given is because we're not filling jobs. So the circle goes around and around and around, and this committee has its purpose to try to find some answers to these things. Now, we think, from what we've seen, we think that there may be, not great money, but there's some money out there. But the agencies with the money aren't really talking to the businesses who need the trainees, and none of them are talking with the agency that's actually doing the job listing. And so what we want to do is bring these people together to see if we can start creating a sort of a kind of response team. When you need training, we'll help you develop it and bring it together. I can't tell you what it's going to look like beyond that. That's just the start. That's the goal. We'll know what it looks like when we have the answer to the goal. Then we have some other issues that we're looking at. We have lots of kids and adults in the town who don't seem to have basic job skills. It seems intuitive, but people don't. They show up to interviews late. They show up dressed poorly. They show up without a resume. They showed up the same way to their work as soon as they've gotten in, and they ended up fired within not a very long period of time. And we actually have the programs in town through WorkSource and the Serenity House to deal with this, but people don't go. So what can we do as a community group to help these people find the motivation to show up so that they can get a life? Because you can't, if you can't show up, you can't make that start. And I don't know what the answers are there. We also have too few resources for our entrepreneurs. We all say, well, you start a business in the town, but that's very easy for some people to say. There are people who intuitively know everything there is to do about a business, and they just know how to create it. And there are a lot of other people who have a really good idea, and that's where it stops. And we have, Washington State has a counselor here, and SCORE has one counselor here. That may have increased to 2, I'm not sure, but it's not enough. We need some sort of entrepreneurs forum of some kind. And again, I don't know what that looks like. But some place where young entrepreneurs who have an idea can go and get the help they need and the hand-holding they need to go through those first years. And finally, the Port and EDC, that's the Economic Development Corporation, and others are all recruiting new businesses to come here. And I'm sorry, I gotta turn this off. And there are challenges that come up when visitors come. They take a look at our mountains, they go ooh, and they take a look at our bay, and they go ooh, and they like the downtown, and they love all this stuff, and then they start looking at some other issues, and they say no way. But what they never get to talk to is committees like this, and they don't see that we're answering these. We're finding solutions, and that's what we want to figure out. Some sort of boosters committee that EDC and these others can turn to when it's time to have one of these tours for an important company and make sure that they get a chance to talk with us. That's us. And questions? Ideas? Oh, and by the way, the biggest thing that we need right now are volunteers.
Doc, who put together this program?
This is WorkSource. The second page of your thing is, this is the WorkSource. It's an annual event that they do. And this is an opportunity for, as it says, it's a hiring resource event. There are jobs to be found, but there's much more than that. Because if you need help in lots of different ways, you can get it there. Now, what our job, this falls under number 4, we need to get our people there. If you know of somebody who belongs there, either they need a job or they need to learn how to be in a job, drive them down. And sometimes it takes, sometimes love is not so gentle. So just take them down and get them into these programs, because these programs will give them a life.
Do you know anything about Pathways, the WorkSource Pathways program?
Right, yes, right. I've heard about it, and they've talked about it. They came here and they made a presentation. And Pathways is one of the training programs that I was referring to. WorkSource has training programs, and Serenity House has training.
But Pathways is aimed at kids.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Are we talking about the same thing? I don't know anything about it. The reason I asked is I picked up a flyer today at the library that said Pathways, opportunities for teenagers, learn work skills, and it said that it was put on by WorkSource. And I just wondered
It is.
why it
There
was
are adult training programs that teach basic skills, and there's the Pathways program, which is aimed at teens. But the details, to find the details, you just go to WorkSource.
How much of a web presence does WorkSource have, and are they on social media? Do you have any?
WorkSource has an interesting web presence. If you try to search down a website, you'll find too many, and it's sometimes difficult because you have to actually go into the state to get the listings, the actual job listings. But to get the program information, you can go online. But they do have a Facebook page that has most of this. However, if you or teens are interested in the Pathways program, I strongly suggest it's a small town, just walk down there. They're downtown at the end of Front Street, and they will walk you through the program.
I have 2 questions, Doc. The first one is, we have Peninsula College there, great college, and it seems like it should be a fantastic resource. What are they doing for job training specifically targeted to this area?
They're limited. They have the carbon recycle effort going, and they have some welding programs and the like. But when you put them side to side with the kind of programs that are available, either Olympic or South Seattle College, we're not in the same ballpark. Now, we also don't have the same kind of draw, so it's much easier for a South Seattle because they have a constant throughput of people. They can maintain this. This is why when we talk about a program at a summit, what we're going to need to be talking about is something that's flexible, a la carte, meaning, we know what we have to do. Do we have enough people to do that one now? Okay, hit it.
Right.
And don't wait for September.
Right. When you have the group, okay.
Right.
And have you been in touch with anybody at the college or community?
We have, but it's slow going.
Of course.
Right now there's only a couple of us, and we need to bring in more people. I need some people to really help drive this summit. And then some other people to take these other smaller tasks and run with them.
My second question is, why do you think WorkSource is so underutilized? I mean, it's this incredible resource. They do things that I think most people don't even realize they provide so many services.
You're asking the $200 question. Here it is. They literally, when he was here a couple of weeks last month, he pointed out that they ran an event targeted right at these folks. They called them up. They made appointments. They made reservations. They even called them the day before and got all these confirmations and 3 showed up. And I called back in the next day and I said, well, maybe one of the things we can do is run a pickup service for you. You get the reservations and we'll go get them. Now, I don't know whether that'll violate some kind of work source rule about.
You know what I mean?
What?
If you have to pick them up for.
Well, you know what, I'm not of that school. I'm of the school that in the early start, when you're trying to change somebody in direction, sometimes it takes, you have to be the things you hope that they will one day have.
After the last meeting, I was really blown away. I mean, I worked for it, and I've been monitoring them, and the jobs, the unfilled jobs are like 525 now, and that's in a month.
Right.
So it's gone from 467, I think is what it was when he was here. And I asked a lot of people, nobody has ever heard of WorkSource. People who have been chronically unemployed, never heard of WorkSource. And if you try and find them online, they are so user-unfriendly, right, that it's ridiculous.
That's why I asked about how their presence online.
It's terrible. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but it's terrible. I'm trying to get Randy to.
And the thing is that no longer are we a society where people stop and look at window, signs, and
it has to be online.
It has to be online, and to target the group of people that are 25 and under especially, they have to be on social media. And they have to be on social media all the time.
Well, and it requires also something more than just social media as well. It is that as a town, we're not actively, I should say we. There are many people who aren't leaning into a career. They're, for whatever reason, they're sitting back. And we have to change that atmosphere. It wasn't always the case here. It doesn't need to be the case now, and it's not good for people. But we have to find a way. It may start with small things that this committee can do, such as banners across the highway. Say, have you looked at WorkSource? And then give them the URL. Or give them a URL of ours. It's really simple that leads to theirs. Whatever it takes to get the message out, to start looking. We've talked about having tables out in front of Vons and the other grocery stores where, all about jobs. And we just have volunteers sitting there and we'll talk about jobs, and people can come in the course of their day and see us and then sit down and say, yeah, I need to do something and get some ideas. We need to up the conversation.
This really gets philosophical, but I think a couple things we've talked about tonight are a key to these problems. And one situation which contributes to these people not showing up to work is the very reason we're here, the drug and alcohol problems. Both if they're addicted or if they have family members, because they're up late at night and some controversy, and it's tough to get up the next day. All sorts of examples like that. The other thing is by encouraging you kids to take your wonderful minds and apply them with originality and speak out, you're just going to be that much better equipped for a job in the future. So these two things, I think, eventually could contribute a lot to this problem.
Well, half the time, children don't even have, just having conversations with my boys, I knew what I wanted to be when I was like 10. And so my whole life I went towards that goal. I got a volunteer job at the Woodland Park Zoo, and I did this, I did good in science, and it didn't pan out, but I had a dream. I asked my oldest boy, just last year, he's 16, what do you want to do when you grow up? You got like this long before you're grown up. And he's like, I have no idea, because there's no access. There's, bring your parent to work day kind of thing. This is what I do. My dad's a cop. My dad's an EMT. My mom is a firefighter. The children don't know what's available here to have a direction. They see what's on TV, but that's on TV. That's far away. That doesn't pertain to what we're doing here. So I know the issue that you're describing is trying to get the younger adults to get to work right now. But I guess a future thing, like you were talking about, to drum up some interest in certain career paths in the generation that's looking at us right now. You know, the healthcare industry is huge here. We have nothing but retired, just a plethora of retired individuals who are going to need some kind of healthcare one way or another. So we need doctors and nurses and EMTs and, you know, CNAs and all kinds of stuff. But kids don't know what that looks like in real life, so those people need to come to the schools, tell them what they do.
Two things. First of all, I think that from an educator's standpoint, for the last decade and a half, we've been so test focused on reading and writing and math, and you know that has been the focus. And unfortunately, a lot of the extracurricular or the life skills have fallen by the wayside. However, today, my 8th graders and I, we went in, actually all 8th graders, we went up to the high school to check out all the CTE programs, and there is a ton up at the high school. There's woodworking and auto mechanics, and there's help me guys, there's DECA, and there's FBLA.
And we got Mr. Mitchell's computer game program in architectural drawing and design.
Right.
And like a bunch of other stuff in that too.
Yeah.
How they have that one free.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And then the body shop, I noticed a lot of interesting design. Somebody made come to one of the years in high school, a little mini model of the Space Needle in Seattle, and there's just a bunch of anchor.
And what they didn't take us to also was, there was stained glass, which was cool, and there was a whole bunch of art stuff, and they didn't show us any of the language arts teachers.
Right, and that stuff's coming too, but can you tell them about the prosthesis? Did you guys see that? The prosthesis?
What's that? Can you?
Well, in the, I think it was the welding
They had all the stuff, that's what I'm saying.
Well, no, the fake leg.
Oh,
the fake leg, they're making prosthetics.
Yeah, I'm making prosthetics, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like prosthesis.
I'm like,
I was like, what is that?
For you young people who want a very interesting life, I know of a young couple who live on a sailboat and travel the world, and that's exactly what they do. They make prostheses and ship them out, and they have the life of Riley.
Hey Doc, I was wondering if this group has any representation on the Economic Development Committee.
And the EDC is, by the way, changed to corporation now.
How can it be a corporation?
I don't know. I'm just telling you, I don't know the details.
That's something to figure out.
And the answer is we've not yet been invited.
Okay, I work for the United Way. I just started this week, and I'm their new resource development manager. We have a place at the table there. So I would be happy to represent and make sure that our voices are being heard there.
Please, we'd like to in fact bring them in to speak here.
Yeah,
at one point.
our elected officials should be the ones helping us and driving this and saying, we want to bring industry in here because it's a great place to live.
Right.
And one of the things, and this is Christy, we're good friends from high school, so I'm glad you moved back to town. But Christy, one of the things that we've been struggling with here is getting our municipal leaders here, and our city council and our, and I think that they're listening in a way, but I think that they're overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on with fluoride is kind of so, but I think that there's so much disconnect right now. There's a lot of good stuff happening in a lot of different areas around town, but there's not a lot of bridging, and so one of the things that we need your help with that.
So one other thing just for you to look into when you have time on the internet, I moved from the famous Chattanooga, Tennessee here, and we have this great group called Causeway. And Causeway did things like what you're talking about. They provide entrepreneurial training for people because that city was really trying to bring people in doing their own businesses, not just big corporations, but little people too. So they've got a lot of resources online, and you might be able to get some ideas from their website.
Thank you. One of the other directions the kids, especially the young folks, might be interested in is that we're looking at to answer some of our training needs, Peninsula is one of the places we will look to see if we can help them improve their game, but we'll also be looking at what are, I guess loosely as a term, hacker schools. And it's not about teaching people to hack computers. These are ad hoc schools that develop online to teach particular topics or particular computer languages for a very short period of time, and then they move on. And some people say this kind of thing is sort of the future of education. I can't comment on that, but what I can say is that it's very good for us, because we down here at the end of the road then can gain access to the best of the best and help our people train up. For example, well, I mean, some of this already exists. Do the kids here know that anytime that they have a science interest, they can take a class from MIT and it doesn't cost a dime?
Really?
Really, because it's all online. It's all online. I mean, you won't get credit for it, but who cares? Once you learn the topic and you demonstrate the skill, whether you have the certificate or not, you can deal with that later. And these kinds of schools, especially in the world, all the jobs that you all know naturally and that we're learning about, that can be done over the cable, over the internet, such as you can do all kinds of technical writing, you can do all kinds of coding. There's an outfit in West Virginia, I think it was Leslie who posted this. There's a guy, he's an ex-miner in West Virginia, and he's taught his whole mining cohort how to code. These kinds of things, this is the sort of stuff we want to develop. But for this to happen, we need more people. Because it's just too, we all have lives, and it's just too much for one or two of us to get done.
Todd, did you have any success with the commissioners?
I did talk to one. And he's very interested and will participate with us when we're ready. But we have to reach a certain level of preparedness ourselves in terms of putting on a summit, and maybe later, and maybe it's possible toward the end of the summer that we could put on a kind of a jobs and business awareness event to get the kind of thing, to try and stop some of the stuff, people not going to WorkSource, and people not applying for jobs, or people not looking for the next level. And that kind of thing is something, my vision would be that we just get to take over Front Street for a day and run a huge event for kids, adults, the whole town, about jobs here in our county. And this isn't a job fair, this is about all of us, how we build a place, and just start a conversation. How do you stimulate other people to be part of this effort?
Doc, do you have another time for a subcommittee meeting?
Well, I was going to do it next Thursday, but since the other one's going, it's okay. I'll do it the following Thursday.
Okay, so Thursday, does anybody have a calendar? Thursday, March 17th?
St. Patrick's Day.
Okay. So, March 17th, is it 6 p.m.?
And it'll probably be at Common Grounds.
Common Grounds, okay. So, okay. Doc, thank you for the update.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Angie?
Okay, yes.
You mentioned the commissioners, and I'm going to address this to Debbie too. In the fall, we're going to have an election for District 2 Commissioner. Wouldn't it be great if the students could host a forum, either at the high school or find a place that they ask the questions to these people, what they can do about youth topics. You could, have the youth submit the questions, give them out to the audience, have them ask. Debbie could maybe work it through the League of Women Voters. Wouldn't that be really cool to have a youth forum? Because I think that would be really neat for this town. And it would scare the pants off of those candidates.
So kids, keep that in mind.
It's Friday. We have Rider News every Friday at the high school, and they go around throughout the week with the weird microphone thing, and they ask people questions. We could maybe ask Rider News if they advertise to them.
Yeah. just issues that kids care about. Yeah.
I'd just make a couple comments. First off, on workforce. 1997, I was on the council that made workforce. Workforce has morphed into an absolute pain in the neck. It's overlogged in paperwork, and it's lost its direction for people. That's its biggest problem. In 2003, we opened the Skill Center to help facilitate training people for jobs on the peninsula. Part of that Skill Center was the incubator, the business incubator, to help small businesses. Both of those entities have failed because people don't support them. Getting the community to support those kind of programs is extremely difficult. You were talking about the CT&E programs, which are, I've been on the CT&E boards at high school for over 20 years. And CT&E in Port Angeles is going to die in 2018. It will go away.
CTE means?
All of the vocational programs will be in such dire straits in 2018 that they're probably going to go away. And one of the biggest tools that our students have and our young people have to learn a skill are in those programs.
Yeah.
But in 2018, Core 24 kicks in, where you have to have 24 credits to graduate. You fail one class, you're going to give up your electives, and your electives are your CT&E programs. A good fight for this group would be to get that changed. Because our kids, we're a blue-collar town. Kids in our town tend to work with their hands. They want to work with their hands. They're not going to have that opportunity after 2018 unless somebody, a group steps up and says, hey, enough's enough. You were talking about using the college. The college has great programs and the ability to create programs in a really big hurry in conjunction with the Skill Center. A lot of times they don't have the facilities to do that. Skill Center, half the Skill Center is empty right now. There's plenty of room down there for any kind of training program. You know, we've been trying to get them to do a hospitality program, a retail sales program. They finally did open up a CNA program down there. We've got a sports medicines program down there now.
Who do you work for now?
Who do I work for? I work for Angel Snower on 16th Street. I spent 8 years on the school board, so that was kind of got me a little bit of trouble.
You're Lonnie Lynn.
Yes, I am.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so there's, you know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We've had the wheel here. We just let the wheel fall apart. This community it's a blue-collar community. If you look and see what happened to this community after Rainier closed and the rebound that it made after losing, what, 300 of the best-paying jobs around, this is a resilient community. It just needs direction. You know, we have a lot of really good groups of people working on a lot of really good problems. The problem is that they've split up all the resources so badly now, nobody has enough resources to get anything off the ground. We have, look how many business groups there are. The PBA or the MPBA, the Chamber, all of these people all have really good ideas, but none of them have the resources to get their good ideas done. If they just bury the hatchet for a while and put all their resources in one pile, they could get a lot done in this town. I think that's the great thing about this group. This group doesn't have any hatchets yet. You know, you guys are...
You just wait.
I'm totally convinced that they will come because I've watched this town for, a better part of 40 years now, and I've watched it cycle and come and ebb and flow, and we've got everything going for us, folks.
And I have to just really reinforce what you said about the Core 24, because up until, I can't remember exactly when, but when I graduated, I think I needed 19 credits to graduate. And then up until, I don't know, a couple decades, it was 22 and a half credits to graduate. And now these guys, 2020 is the first class that it has to have 24 credits to graduate, which means they can't fail any classes. The kids that fail classes they tend to be the kids that gravitate toward the CTE classes. And so if they fail a class, they don't have any room in their schedule to take a vocational class, which is really unfortunate because those kids are going to make great livings as plumbers or carpenters or any of those other jobs that we still desperately need in our town. And so as a teacher that deeply believes in reading and writing, I also feel that there's also something about kids liking to go to school and kids enjoying being there and learning skills that they can use throughout their life. I, of course, they can't be illiterate. They need to learn to read and write. However, you're shaking your head no. But,
Credit thing.
but I do think that there needs to be some, from an educational perspective, there has to be some forgiveness for students. You know, that students are going to screw up, they're going to fail a course or two, but they shouldn't lose what they love at school. And so that is a huge problem, and that is going to impact jobs very huge in, 10 years, if it goes away.
They do have credit recovery, but it's rather hard. I mean, some classes you have to do a whole bunch to get the credit recovered, and other classes it's kind of easy, but the classes that are hard, I mean, kids won't have the motivation to pass if they fail and the credit recovery is too hard. And
right. And one of the things I know is that, and this has been said a lot, but students that are best and brightest leave our area. They go to Seattle and go to school, they leave, and some of them never come back. The kids that financially can't leave or can't, they stay. And so we need to have safety nets for those kids so that they can get the training and they have opportunities. And, maybe we focus on teenagers, and getting them, somehow prepared for the workforce.
You have to teach them the soft skills. At the Skill Center ran for almost 10 years a class on nothing but soft skills, and it was how to fill out a resume, how to present yourself, how to show up, and all the things about why it was important to be there on time, and what safety on the job site meant, and I mean all kinds of things that you needed to have. I know a lot of business people in this town. I've been in business here for a long time. The biggest problem we're having is Westport. I talked to their HR director a few days ago. They have positions. They had 9 people come down. 8 of them failed the drug test.
Right.
Come on, 8 out of 9 failed the drug test?
Right.
If you're going to apply for a job and there's drug testing, come on, at least clean up for 27 days.
Right.
Angie, another opportunity that's going on in town is with the new public access television station. So Peninsula Area Public Access is looking to train young people who want to learn how to run a camera, do lighting, etc. And the Skills Center has now about 14 kids in this brand new class on media and media production. So it's a 3:30 to 6:30 class every evening. So I think there's things happening that we can take advantage of.
Yeah, and there are other things that we need to be looking at outside the box is we need to reverse roles. We need to start thinking about trying to get some of the kids out there who already know how to code and stuff down to the Skills Center to teach some of our adults how to code, because coding is a blue-collar job. We want to think of it as a white-collar one, but it's not. It is writing blocks of code for specific kinds of instructions, because the poor machine just does click, 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 click. You tell it everything, but it's the kids who know how to do these things, and it's the adults who need the jobs.
Well, if you look across the peninsula, one of the biggest industries on the peninsula right now is home building, the construction industry. Just in carpenters in the state of Washington next year, there's going to need 50,000 carpenters next year. We had a great training program here. We had a program called the Future Builders that ran for about 10 years. We produced about 300 carpenters through that program in 10 years. Program would probably still be running right now, except we ran out of jobs on the peninsula. Kids that take these programs, they want that carrot at the end. They go, okay, I'm going to put in my year's time, but you got to take care of me when I get done. We were placing 90% of our graduates on the peninsula right here in town. And when we ceased to be able to do that, the program died. The next year, the first year that we didn't put 90% of our kids to work, the program didn't have enough enrollees the next year to keep it going. People want programs that there's some gratification and a carrot right at the end. All right, I'll go to school for a year, but when I get done in my year, I want a job. And you've got to be ready to give them that job. And that takes a partnership with local business to say, hey, if we train them, will you hire them? And it takes a big commitment on the business's part to do that. So it can be done. It's been done on the peninsula.
Real quick, we really need to move on because I usually keep our meetings on schedule. Very quickly, I need to give you an update about Oxford. We have been working with Oxford Housing. Oxford Housing is, we have five local homes here in town, and individuals who have gone through treatment or are going through treatment can live in these homes, and they do pay rent. They're great neighbors. And we've been supporting them, and they've been, attending meetings and things like that. But a lot of leadership has changed at Oxford, and a lot of people that decide to move out of the Oxford home once they're ready, and they want their own home and their own family and their own privacy, they end up moving out, and then they lose touch with Oxford. So unfortunately, I just got word that Oxford is pulling out of PAARI. And I don't exactly know what it means for us, but I know that at some point I hope that we can collaborate again with them, because it really is going to be necessary for the PAARI program. And having additional homes and houses for individuals who are going through treatment to live. I worked really hard with the leadership there to keep them with us, but at this point in time, and I don't know the whole story, I don't think, but they are pulling out for now, which is kind of sad. But, yes, but eventually I hope to have a housing subcommittee because of all of the exciting things that is going on PAARI. And can you give us a really brief, and I know it probably can't be done very briefly, but.
So, yes, very briefly. So the last time we were here was what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Month ago.
A month ago. So from this PAARI notion, this notion of taking law enforcement and all the other partners in creating a pathway for people who are addicted mostly to heroin. I mean, that's the real common addiction problem, but having all of us in different roles be connected in an organized way, so when someone shows up in the lobby of the police department and says, I've got a heroin problem, I need help, that I have, or that my officers have a way of getting them into help, like in an organized fashion that's going to get them where they want to go. So we've been working on this for 2 months, and we've discovered that just by our collaboration, by bringing all these people together, sort of an ongoing summit, we've learned a lot about what each other does in this treatment role, what we can do in law enforcement, what other people can do in other disciplines. And we've collaborated with police agencies across the country, several, one of which is sending out one of their police captains to help us next week with a presentation to the Hargrove Committee. And the idea of us doing a presentation with public health is to try to find some funding for a clinician position, a social worker person who would be the outreach person. And we've discovered that's the best practice in police departments that have done that, is they actually have someone tied to them. It doesn't have to be law enforcement, it could be public health, that can connect with people and bring them in under the fold, so to speak. So Christina Hurst, who's not here tonight, and I went down to Olympia last week, met with 2 legislators, gave them a brief on our vision that we have for this collaborative program. And just being in the legislature, we learned about 2 bills that we might have known about, but we didn't, that are moving through, that actually show a lot of promise in the addiction realm, in taking the laws that are already there that allow us to put people into treatment when they've got psychological, gravely disabled, using the same criteria for drug disabled. I'm saying that kind of fast, but that's a tool we don't have right now, but it's looking very promising. We've got, what, I don't know, a dozen people, right, that have been involved in this effort, and I think we need the clinician, the social worker piece, which we're missing, but we have everything else. We have the medical staff in the jail, we've got public health that's really actually got a lot of things going on. They've got a vacant FTE or full-time equivalent job that they could repurpose from a nurse to a social worker. And my friend Amy and I have been talking back and forth about how volunteers would work and how we would once the police got the intake, once we have the person that says they got a problem, I need help, I make the phone call, then I meet Amy. What would this look like next? Maybe you can jump in right there. How would that work?
Well, most of these programs that are offshoots of the PAARI, which is Police Assisted Addiction Recovery Initiative, are volunteer run. So we would need a hearty group of folks that want to be a part of the solution in regards to getting people who describe themselves as struggling with drug use and getting them into treatment, which would reduce crime and reduce drug use and overdosing, which is pretty popular in the news lately. So we will probably be doing, in the not so distant future, some volunteer recruiting. And right now, some of the things that we're looking for is somebody who is over the age of 21. They do have to go through background checks, my understanding, through the police department. But we're not doing, I guess certain things. So we're looking specifically for some people who maybe have gone through treatment in the past and have several years of recovery in their history, people who kind of understand the process and can be kind of a guiding light in these people's lives.
So kind of like an AA sponsor
Yes.
bit? Okay.
So when we get the person, that comes to us, we've made the initial contact screening. This person kind of stays with them and guides them, walks them through, keeps them moving, keeps them going through the process. And we have people all over in different roles that do that now, in different disciplines. And our colleague who's coming out next week to spend some time with us is going to take us through exactly how they've succeeded in Arlington, Massachusetts in doing that. And it wasn't as hard as it appeared to be. And it's actually succeeded in many ways that some ideas we hadn't even thought of. So we're looking forward to that, along with the other, the naloxone and the drug-assisted treatment. Heroin is in the news right now, and we were at the summit, LOC did, and there's a lot of new information there, and just getting people regularly who are involved in different parts of the process is very valuable. We've had two outreaches to us from this PAARI program, which has a website and it's got a board, and I think it's a nonprofit. It's got a branded entity. So the second person was somebody in Washington over in near Seattle who somehow got on this site, made contact with a law enforcement person in, I believe, Massachusetts, who contacted us, and that contact got to me, and I reached out to Christina because I was in the middle of doing something else, like, how can we, this person says they want help, they're in Washington, how can we get them? And so Christina and I were just, the two of us, trying to do this between us, making phone calls, emails, and it took a little bit of work, and it would have been like we had more volunteers and say that was Amy doing it. But we found the person eventually. We got law enforcement tasked with responding to the residents located because it appeared to be a domestic violence issue. And Christina was able to succeed in getting the person into rehab, or excuse me, detox first, rehab second, and then that's happening right here. I mean, it's only a 3-hour drive from wherever. And these kind of efforts are a little labor intensive, but the first step is giving people a way to find you. And so this new program, that's how that person found, it was a connection to law enforcement, connection to public health, connection to treatment. And we would hope to have more of those kinds of success stories. Doesn't mean the person's going to stay with it. As you guys know, we've been involved in this, but that's the, one person off the trash heap who's got people out there who want to help them. So that's where we're at right now.
Are the sheriff's officers also being trained or a part of this?
Well, not right now, but we're hoping that this becomes a law enforcement thing that we all do, right? So, PAPD, we just, I mean, we're part of PACAN. I mean, we're part of Revitalize, and so when Angie actually brought this to us, Terry Gallagher, the chief, and I were pretty enthusiastic about learning more about it, and so we thought, well, why not be part of it? So, it's just us right now, and other people. We hope if we can create something that's value added, it wouldn't just be PAPD, it would be other law enforcement agencies that experience a drug addiction problem.
And we're in the process creating space right now. Like there's really no process in place, and so we're kind of in that piece
But just
right
letting
now.
them know that you're doing it.
Yeah, well,
and it's definitely going to increase any relationships that we have, like the story of somebody out of town calling us. Well, that can work both ways. And
so the vision would be
we don't have that
any law
in here.
Any law enforcement officer in Clallam County would be briefed on how to do it. So the person walks up to you, you know about them. One of the things they do in Massachusetts is that, like Bob, who works in the drug task force side, we sometimes know who addicts are based on our investigations. And so they've, and the chief thought of this, is we have access to this information. There's no reason we can't have a social worker like Amy say, hey, I'm with the police department. I happen to know you're involved in drugs, and we're concerned about you. And the police department was doing a search warrant in your neighborhood yesterday, but we know about you, and we've got this program. And a third of the people they talk to in those sort of cold calls are successful in, becoming part of getting help. So things like that. It would take a while for everybody who's wearing, say, a uniform, fire, law enforcement, to be on the same page. But one of the legislators is a paramedic, Kevin, and he said, I'm in the back of the ambulance with some people now and again, and that's really an awesome idea. I would love, as a paramedic firefighter, to say, well, you need help, and you're asking me, here's how it works. And we're very excited.
Throwing them back out on the street after.
Well, or throwing them to somebody who doesn't really know much more than you do, and then they get lost in the shuffle, which unfortunately with a lot of fast-moving circumstances, like, how does the world really work? Well, people don't always know. I mean, because there's different, there's public health, there's psychological health, there's the hospital, there's a treatment center up here, there's law enforcement. The myths about, like, what we do if somebody shows up at our police station. Are we going to arrest them because they've got drugs, in their system? The answer is no, we're not. But those are the kind of things we want to bridge with, a really well thought out process, some people that will help, and really some more efficient way to use everything we have.
Have you talked to Sheriff Benedict about this?
Well, not as much specifically. I mean, I talk to Sheriff Benedict every other week. So this is sort of like our new idea that we're, once we're ready, we have a collaborative group that we meet regularly with administrators and other things, and we have a joint supervisors group. So as soon as I have something to show to those guys, then we're gonna invite them in.
Ready to pilot a program.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things you mentioned were part of the county.
Well, in terms of the, what do you mean as part of the county?
County Health Department, I thought you...
Well, yeah, the county health department is in Port Angeles, and so they've become a partner. The fact that they're a county agency and we're a city agency doesn't mean...
No, I know that, but the sheriff is a county agency too, so you think you jump at this.
Sure. Well, like many of us in these jobs, we're all sort of taking on a host of problems every day. And we have a particular urban environment here that has a lot of people who are addicted. And we happen to have a partner in public health that while they're a county agency, they're also located right here. The Needle Exchange, the naloxone program, and like, the fact that we're doing police naloxone or, Narcan here, but no other police agency isn't really a knock on the other agencies. They haven't, had the time or the interest, but like a lot of things we do, once we pilot something, I think the interest will come. And really, the Sheriff's Department and, say, other agencies, if we've got something that works, they'll do the intake just like we do it. We're going to provide some leadership and some help and some structure, But really, it's going to be the other disciplines that are going to do, I mean, we're going to be the people in uniform that'll have the informed answer and be able to say, hey, we, you know, whether it's fire or law enforcement, we've got something for you, but then we'll be handing them off to you or to Christina. But
with the goal of getting that person into a facility that moment. That's the ultimate goal.
But to answer your question more specifically, I mean, the sheriff's a good friend of mine. He knows about our enthusiasm for different things, like defibrillators in the police cars. I actually started with Port Angeles Police, but they're in the sheriff's cars now. They're in the swim cars now. There's a lot of things we do like that whoever thinks of it first sort of pilots it, but we all move forward in the same direction. I mean, right now we're trying to have something, I think, to describe in a way that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, we don't have like a program to present.
Is there a split between the hotspots for heroin addiction between the cities and the county? Is it 50-50? Do you have anything like that?
Well, you know, the actual hotspots for like crime, like burglaries.
Well,
where people
who
live.
would run into the most heroin addiction problems?
Well, the call volume, I think, is higher the more urbanized you are, but the actual numbers of addicts, that would be a good question to put it on a map, and you could probably map some of it, but it's more dispersed as you leave this urban area here, but it's just more dispersed, but it exists throughout like Clallam and Jefferson County, right? And it exists in pockets everywhere, and the use, the drug trafficking part of it, the burglary part of it, I think, is actually worse in some of the unincorporated areas because people have access, and that's the addicted people that are practicing the burglaries. I mean, the people that have the drug problem that's driving that behavior. The sheriff's department actually has been very successful in interdicting the burglary and the property side more than us. They've been able to. Yeah, but I mean, it's a problem we all share, and that problem doesn't know any boundaries. But you know, if you're living in an apartment complex, let's say, or you're living in a trailer park, or you're living in a marginal environment, we're more likely to see drug addiction.
So Brian, when is the next subcommittee meeting? Do you remember off the top of your head?
That's a good
We have one
question.
on Monday, but that's
not a subcommittee, that's a presentation, right?
That's a presentation meeting. That's a good question.
I don't think we have one scheduled because we were looking at the presentation to the scores, so I don't think we have one.
So, and just to add real quick, for the presentation, we were hoping to do a little publicity about, you know, this collaborative effort, you know, PAARI and also this PAARI program. And I talked to Julie Harry from our PD today, very, very knowledgeable person. We'll, I mean, I'm going to do a press release from the police department, but also kind of try to bring in this whole community effort. I mean, it's not really about the police department as much as the, you know, the interest in like I wanted to put Amy and Julia Keegan and Christina, get all these people in a, sort of in a picture, with a police car behind them or something, you know, just to show off what we're
It's really taking
Yeah.
so many different people from so many different places in town to make this work. And another thing for everyone to understand is that this program has been around since, July of this last year. And so it is very, very new. And the fact that a small town, you know, in the Olympic, you know, area is doing it is pretty cool. You know, it's pretty up and coming.
Yeah, I would think, right, yeah.
This is similar to the detox student on 5th Street, just right over here. Have you interviewed them yet to kind of see how their process works?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
It will be using that program.
Okay.
So
I work at the hospital, so I know how it starts from the ER side
Right.
and how the case management makes contact, and they literally, once they're cleared, they have like 30 minutes to get to the center, checked in. They don't leave with prescriptions. Those are all sent over via electronically.
I think the vision is that our volunteers with the program would be good people to have transport them in that 30 minutes, walk with them in that 30 minutes, because
sometimes they disappear.
True, right? I mean, and someone coming into a police department at 7:30 saying, I need help, at 7:45 may not feel the same way unless they have somebody that's working with them and they can see that it's going to happen, and there's somebody encouraging them. And that's what our volunteers would be doing. And there's training behind that. So it's not like that program, but it's going to be using that program quite a bit.
Yeah, 'cause this is kind of all-encompassing, so it would include the police department, not pressing charges, that it would not become a criminal, and then it would be social workers on board, it would be a detox center, and it would be the, if necessary, hospital as well, just all collaborating to help this person's life rather than just punish them for the addiction that, is out of control.
And the idea being, it assumes that you guys are already doing what you're doing. The treatment center here is already functioning, and that volunteer person would be guiding you there and getting you through
Plugging the
all those
holes.
pieces.
It's a huge need because they are literally just sent out the door.
Yep.
Good luck.
Well, like what we've learned in doing this, like the intake that you guys do, when everybody that comes in here gets a screening for drug addiction, that's actually really important and valuable that you guys are doing that already. Mayor Holmes's doing that. And there's, what Angie says about not pressing charges, because if you walk into a police department and you say I'm a heroin addict or a heroin user and I need help, there's really nothing to press charges against you for. I mean, we're going to screen a person to make sure they're not wanted, that they're not a fugitive. Because if they are, they're going to deal with their warrants first. Or they're not carrying a firearm under their jacket and wanting to harm someone. But really the notion of, a lot of times people actually think they're going to get arrested. It is illegal to use an illegal drug, but the fact that you're there, there's nothing to press charges about, and really it's in all of our interest to try to get those people some help and to get them off, get them out of the cold and off, into where someone can help them.
It's not just for them too, it's for their families, if they have families.
Brian, if this program is used at anywhere close to the level that it's showing up in Arlington and places where it's gotten started, do we have the beds?
No idea, probably not, but there's beds somewhere. I mean, there's beds in other places.
There's not a lot of treatment options here,
Okay.
but there's a detox, and if we're talking about heroin users, they're going to start on the detox.
Okay.
So that gives, some time where the volunteers could be working towards finding that bed and plugging some holes that the detox staff have, and just kind of working with everybody that can tell us, hey, there's a half-hour time span here, we need monitoring. Okay, we're there. But no, there's not a lot of treatment options here, but studies show also that getting out of town for treatment is really the best way to go.
Well, a lot of these people do show up and they don't have support, and when you don't have that support system, you're just erratic. And then on the flip side, when you have your family there, it's so emotional for your family member that then you have the family member upset because maybe they're trying to back out. So I think that if you have a non-biased party that's there to support you, it's sometimes almost better than having your family there, because it causes hysteria.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So and then they're upset because we can't force them. They're not an ITA. I can't make them go.
So if the legislature passes the ITA law for drugs, there'll be more ITA. There'll be a 72-hour hold type ITA for the disabled person, which, how I learned about that was me talking about my California experience, and to be told by two different legislators that I know, like, well, Washington's actually doing a similar thing. I had no idea that was, one of them was called Rachel's Law?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was based on circumstance with a teenager.
Actually, Rachel's law, I think, is that...
What's Ricky's law?
Ricky's law is
Ricky's law, right.
72 hour.
But that's some of the things that are happening in this charge.
Thank you for working so hard on it. Things have come together very quickly, which is great.
Yeah, it's been moving very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. It was a long meeting, and I really appreciate you being here. So next month, Thursday, the first Thursday of the month, 6 o'clock. Also, we're going to be putting, I will be putting all of the subcommittee meetings up, or Dockwell, or, you know, guys. So, but have a great evening. Thank you again for coming. Because I'm